Billionaire's wife mocks a poor janitor unaware he would become the lover of her daughter. Carolina Ashford's manicured finger pointed at him like a loaded weapon, her voice dripping with the kind of contempt only old money could perfect. Those hands look more suited to mops than Waterford crystal. She had no idea that the young black waiter she just humiliated would, in 6 months, be the man her daughter chose over every trust fund heir in the city, that her venom would become the origin story of her worst nightmare and her daughter's greatest love. The Metropolitan Arts Foundation ballroom sparkled like a jewelry box come to life, all crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes catching light like captured stars. Carolina Ashford stood at the center of it all, a gravitational force in her black Valentino gown, her diamond necklace worth more than most people's homes. This was her kingdom. Every year, she hosted this charity gala with the precision of a military operation and the warmth of a tax audit. The cause changed annually: orphans, cancer research, endangered sea turtles, but the real purpose never did, reminding everyone exactly where they stood in the city's carefully maintained hierarchy. "Darling, you've outdone yourself," cooed Patricia van der Berg, her tennis partner and closest thing to a friend, though Carolina would sooner eat glass than admit she needed friends. "It's adequate," Carolina replied, her eyes scanning the room like a security camera. "Though I specifically requested the ice sculptures be 12 inches taller. I'll be having words with the catering company." Her husband Richard stood nearby, nursing his third scotch of the evening, his spine having apparently dissolved into his tailored Tom Ford suit. He'd learned years ago that disagreeing with Carolina was like arguing with gravity, pointless and exhausting. 23-year-old Jameson Cole moved through the crowd with practiced invisibility, his white shirt crisp despite 3 hours of service, his dark slacks discount rack specials he'd pressed with meticulous care in his cramped studio apartment. His brown skin gleamed under the chandelier lights as he balanced a tray of hors d'oeuvres with the steadiness of someone who couldn't afford mistakes. Third job this week. Morning shift at the campus library, afternoons at his uncle's repair shop, evenings serving people who looked through him like he was made of glass. He'd graduated summa cum laude from state with a philosophy degree and enough student debt to buy a yacht. Currently, that degree qualified him to serve canapés to people who clutched their purses a little tighter when he walked past. "Excuse me, coming through," he murmured, navigating between a hedge fund manager and a plastic surgeon's wife. That's when it happened. A slight jostle from a drunk guest sent him stumbling, just slightly, into Carolina Ashford's peripheral vision. His tray tilted but didn't fall. Nothing spilled. No actual harm done. But Carolina had found her evening's entertainment. "Careful," she said, her voice cutting through conversations like a knife through silk. The way her eyes swept over him, taking in his skin, his discount clothes, his very existence in her space, said everything her words didn't. "Those hands look more suited to mops than Waterford crystal." The surrounding guests laughed, that particular kind of performative laughter that signals allegiance more than amusement. A few averted their eyes, embarrassed but not brave enough to object. Jameson's jaw tightened. He'd developed an entire catalog of these moments, filed in a mental folder labeled "Reasons to Keep Going." Every humiliation, every casual cruelty, every reminder that in rooms like this, his worth was predetermined by the color of his skin and the price tag on his shirt. "My apologies, ma'am," he said, the words tasting like ashes. What Carolina didn't know, what her practiced cruelty had blinded her to, was that Jameson Cole read Kierkegaard on subway rides, volunteered teaching chess to kids at the community center, and possessed something her money couldn't buy: genuine authenticity and a mind sharper than anyone in this room. He also happened to be exactly what Naomi Ashford had been searching for during her year abroad: someone real, unpolished, blessedly free of the emotional bankruptcy and casual racism that characterized her mother's world. The ballroom doors opened with a dramatic flourish. A latecomer arrived, a young white woman with auburn hair and her mother's sharp cheekbones, but eyes that held something Carolina's never had: actual warmth. Naomi Ashford had returned. And everything was about to change. The daughter returns. Naomi Ashford swept into the ballroom like a storm disrupting still water. At 21, she'd spent the last year in Europe, ostensibly studying art history, actually learning how to breathe without her mother's expectations crushing her lungs. Paris had changed her. Or maybe it had just revealed who she'd been trying to become all along. She wore a deep emerald dress that cost less than her mother would have approved but fit her better than any designer gown ever had. Her auburn hair fell in loose waves instead of the severe chignon Carolina preferred. She'd stopped trying to be a China doll version of her mother somewhere between the Louvre and a café in Montmartre where she'd spent 3 hours talking philosophy with a street artist. "Darling." Carolina's voice sliced through the room. "You're late." Traffic was terrible, Naomi lied smoothly, having actually spent an extra hour at a bookstore in Brooklyn, avoiding this exact moment. Her mother's air kiss landed somewhere near her cheek, cold and performative. "We'll discuss punctuality later. Senator Morrison has been asking about you. His son Jeffrey is here, Yale Law, very promising." "How thrilling," Naomi said, her smile not reaching her eyes. She'd met a dozen Jeffreys in her life. Interchangeable men in expensive suits who talked about their portfolios and their squash games and never once asked her what she thought about anything that mattered. Her father Richard gave her a genuine hug, smelling of scotch and resignation. "Welcome home, sweetheart." "Thanks, Dad." She squeezed his hand. In another life, in another family, he might have been a good man. But Carolina had long since hollowed him out. Naomi grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing tray and began her obligatory circuit of the room, shaking hands and accepting compliments on how refined she looked after her year abroad. The subtext was always the same: "Thank God you're back where you belong." That's when she saw him. The young black waiter moved with quiet dignity through the crowd, his presence somehow both invisible and impossible to ignore. There was something in the set of his shoulders, pride, maybe, or defiance wearing the mask of professionalism. She watched as her mother's friend Patricia deliberately stepped into his path, forcing him to navigate around her with his tray. Watched as another guest snapped fingers at him like he was a dog. And then she saw her mother. Carolina stood in a cluster of socialites, holding court, her voice carrying that particular edge that meant someone was about to be eviscerated for sport. "I mean, really," Carolina was saying, her gesture encompassing the waiter who'd just passed. "The agency promised experienced staff. That boy nearly upended an entire tray on my Valentino. I should have been more specific, I wanted competent help, not charity cases." The women around her tittered. Naomi felt something hot and sharp twist in her chest. She'd heard this tone her entire life, watched her mother weaponize her privilege against anyone she deemed beneath her. She'd been too young, too complicit, too afraid to say anything before. Paris had changed that too. She drifted closer, champagne glass in hand, catching fragments of conversation. Probably one of those diversity hires. Affirmative action. "You know how they are, Carolina." Naomi's grip tightened on her glass. She scanned the room until she found him again, the waiter her mother had humiliated. He stood near the kitchen entrance, his jaw set, his eyes fixed on some middle distance, processing whatever small violence had just been done to his dignity. In that moment, something her art history professor had said in Paris came rushing back: "Real beauty isn't in the gilded frames, Naomi. It's in the truth underneath." She'd spent a year looking at art. Maybe it was time to actually see people. The waiter straightened his shoulders, picked up another tray, and walked back into the lion's den of the ballroom with his head high. Naomi made a decision. She wound her way through the crowd, timing her approach for when he'd be near the refreshment table, away from her mother's immediate sight line. "Excuse me," she said softly as he arranged glasses on the table. He turned, and for the first time, she saw his face fully. Young, maybe her age. Intelligent eyes that held stories he probably never got to tell in rooms like this. A quiet strength that no amount of her mother's cruelty could quite extinguish. "Yes, ma'am." His voice was careful, professional, giving nothing away. "I'm sorry," Naomi said. "For my mother." For all of this. His eyes flickered with surprise, then something more guarded. You don't need to apologize for her. I know. But someone should. She paused. I'm Naomi. Jameson, he said after a moment, then seemed to catch himself. Ma'am. Just Naomi, please. She smiled. Ma'am makes me feel like I should be wearing pearls and judging people at country clubs. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Aren't you? Wearing pearls? No. Judging people? Only the ones who deserve it. She glanced back toward her mother. And that's a target-rich environment tonight. This time he did smile, quick and genuine, before professional distance reasserted itself. I should get back to work, he said. Right. Of course. Naomi stepped back. It was nice to meet you, Jameson. You too. Naomi. He disappeared into the crowd, and she stood there, something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was simpler than that. It was recognition. The sense of seeing someone actually real in a room full of beautiful mannequins. Have you ever met someone who made you question everything you thought you knew about your own world? Drop a comment and tell me about that moment. Across the ballroom, Carolina Ashford watched her daughter talk to the help with narrowed eyes, already calculating, already planning to nip whatever inappropriate notion Naomi might be developing firmly in the bud. She had no idea she was already too late. The gala dragged on with the enthusiasm of a dental procedure. Jameson had perfected the art of being present without being seen, a survival skill he'd honed over years of working in spaces where his existence was tolerated only as long as it was useful. He refilled champagne flutes, cleared abandoned plates, and absorbed the casual cruelty of the wealthy like a sponge designed to soak up other people's toxicity. His mind kept drifting back to her. Naomi. Carolina Ashford's daughter, who'd apologized like it mattered. Like he mattered. He'd learned not to trust kindness from people like her. It was usually performance, guilt dressed up as compassion, a way to feel better about privilege without actually challenging it. Jameson. His supervisor Marco hissed from the kitchen doorway. Table 6 needs clearing. Move. Table 6 was in Carolina Ashford's direct line of sight. Of course it was. He approached with his empty tray, and began efficiently stacking used plates. The guests, two couples discussing vacation homes, didn't acknowledge his presence. He was furniture with hands. The thing about St. Moritz is that it's become so democratized. Last season we saw middle management types on the slopes. Middle management. Jameson's jaw tightened. God forbid regular people have nice things. As he turned to leave, he saw Naomi trapped in conversation with a young man in a navy suit who stood too close. Even from across the room, Jameson could read her body language, the polite smile that didn't reach her eyes, the slight backward lean creating distance. Naomi's suitor is quite persistent, Carolina's voice cut through the air behind him, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Jeffrey Morrison. Excellent family. His father practically owns the Harbor Commission. When's the wedding? Her friend Patricia cooed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Though June is such a beautiful time for weddings. Jameson moved toward the kitchen, passing close enough to hear Carolina's next words. Of course, after that year in Paris, she's developed some rather bohemian ideas. Thinks she wants to work in art restoration. As if Ashford's work. Carolina's laugh was sharp as broken glass. I give it 3 months before she's engaged to Jeffrey and forgets this nonsense. Jameson pushed through the kitchen doors, his hands tight on the tray. He'd met women like Naomi before, privileged girls slumming through their rebellion phase before settling into the lives their mothers had scripted. Yo, Jay. His coworker Devin was scraping plates. You survive another tour through the asshole convention? Barely. 1 more hour. Cole. Marco stuck his head in. You're needed in the ballroom. Some guest wants to thank the staff personally. Mrs. Ashford's orders. Jameson's stomach dropped. This couldn't be good. He followed Marco back into the ballroom, where a small crowd had gathered. Carolina Ashford stood at the center, microphone in hand, her smile as warm as a viper's. I just want to take a moment to thank our wonderful catering staff for their adequate service this evening. The word landed like a slap. In fact, I'd like to recognize a few individuals. Where is that young man who nearly dropped the tray? Oh no. Ah, there you are. Carolina's eyes locked on Jameson. Come here, son. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But he needed this job. Needed the money for rent, loans, and his mother's medical bills. Jameson walked forward, spine straight, face carefully neutral. What's your name, young man? Jameson Cole, ma'am. Well, Jameson, I'm sure you're working very hard to better yourself. What do you do when you're not serving? The question was a trap. But before he could answer, another voice cut through. He's a philosophy graduate from State University. Naomi stepped forward, her voice clear and firm. Summa cum laude, if I remember correctly. Every head turned. Carolina's smile froze. Naomi, darling, I'm sure Mr. Cole can speak for himself. I'm sure he can. But since you asked him here to thank him, I thought you'd want to know exactly who you were thanking. Jameson graduated top of his class. His thesis on Kierkegaard was published in the university journal. The crowd murmured. Carolina's mask slipped, revealing fury underneath. How impressive. Well. Thank you for your service, Mr. Cole. You may go. But Naomi wasn't finished. Actually, Jameson, I'd love to hear more about your work. Would you join me for coffee sometime? I'm curious about your perspective on existential philosophy. The ballroom went silent. Carolina's face turned the color of curdled milk. Jameson started. Naomi smiled, a real smile, warm and slightly reckless. My number's on my mother's event card. Text me. She walked away, leaving Jameson standing in the wreckage of Carolina Ashford's carefully constructed evening, wondering what the hell had just happened. Jameson stared at his phone for 20 minutes before finally typing the message. It was 2 a.m. He'd gotten home an hour ago, his feet aching, his mind racing. The event card with Naomi's number sat on his cramped kitchen counter like a live grenade. This is stupid, he told himself for the 15th time. She's a billionaire's daughter. You're a waiter she felt sorry for. But that smile. That defiant, reckless smile when she challenged her mother in front of everyone. His thumbs hovered over the screen. Hi. This is Jameson. From the gala. About that coffee. He deleted it. Too eager. Hey Naomi. Jameson here. Still interested in discussing Kierkegaard? Too formal. Like a professor emailing a student. This is Jameson Cole. Thank you for tonight. I'd like to take you up on that coffee if the offer still stands. He hit send before he could overthink it, then immediately wanted to throw his phone across the room. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. His heart hammered. Finally. I was starting to think you weren't going to text. Tuesday at 10. There's a place in Brooklyn, grounds for thought. Real coffee, not that pretentious stuff my mother drinks. Jameson smiled despite himself. Tuesday works. See you there. Fair warning, I really do want to talk philosophy. This isn't a pity date. Good. Because I don't do pity anything. Perfect. Night, Jameson. He set down his phone, his smile fading as reality settled in. What was he doing? Getting involved with Carolina Ashford's daughter was career suicide. Social suicide. Probably regular suicide, knowing how people like Carolina operated. But something about Naomi's voice when she defended him, the way she'd looked at her mother with barely concealed disgust. Maybe she was different. Or maybe he was just another fool falling for a rich girl's rebellion. Tuesday, 9:45 a.m. Jameson arrived 15 minutes early, scanning the coffee shop with the wariness of someone who'd learned that spaces could be hostile. Grounds for thought was everything the gala wasn't: mismatched furniture, local art on brick walls, the smell of actually good coffee instead of champagne. He ordered a black coffee. Debated ordering something fancier, decided against performing for her. If she wanted the real him, this was it. Naomi walked in at 10:03, wearing jeans and a vintage leather jacket, her auburn hair in a messy bun. She looked more relaxed than she had at the gala, like she'd shed a costume. "Sorry I'm late." She slid into the seat across from him. "My mother insisted on discussing my inappropriate behavior at breakfast. Let me guess. I'm a bad influence. The worst." Her smile was conspiratorial. "Apparently, I embarrassed her in front of the entire Metropolitan Arts Foundation board. I might never recover." "How will you go on?" "With difficulty." She flagged down the barista, ordered an oat milk cappuccino. "So. Kierkegaard. Tell me why existential dread is actually comforting." Jameson blinked. "That's not the usual opening." "I'm not usual." She leaned forward. "I spent 6 months in Paris trying to understand why I felt so empty in rooms full of everything. Then I read The Sickness Unto Death and something clicked. But I want to hear your take." For the next hour, they talked. Really talked. Not the performative conversation of the gala, but the messy, passionate kind where you interrupt each other because the ideas are flowing faster than words can catch them. Naomi had read more than he'd expected. She challenged his interpretations, offered her own, laughed when he called her Sartre analysis optimistically nihilistic. "That's a contradiction," she protested. "So is your mother hosting a charity gala while treating the staff like dirt?" Naomi's smile faded. "I'm sorry about her. About all of it. You don't need to apologize for her." "I know. But someone should." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "For what it's worth, I'm not her. I don't want to be her." "I noticed." "Did you?" Her eyes met his. "Or did you just see another rich girl slumming with the help?" The question hung between them, honest and dangerous. "I saw someone who stood up when she didn't have to," Jameson said quietly. "Who made herself a target to defend someone she didn't know. That's not slumming. That's character." Naomi's expression softened. "I saw someone who kept his dignity when my mother tried to strip it away. That's not just character. That's strength." Outside, rain began to fall. Inside, something shifted between them, fragile and real and terrifying. "So," Naomi said. "Same time next week?" "Next week," Jameson agreed, knowing he was already in too deep to back out now. 3 weeks turned into 6. 6 coffee dates turned into bookstore wanderings, museum visits, late-night walks through Brooklyn where Naomi could shed the Ashford name like an unwanted coat. Jameson learned she was funny, genuinely funny, not the rehearsed wit of her mother's circle. She made impressions of the gala guests that made him laugh until his ribs hurt. Naomi learned he was brilliant, not just educated, but sharp in ways her Yale-bound suitors could never be. He saw connections between ideas they'd never imagine. "You should be teaching," she said one afternoon in Prospect Park. They were sprawled on a blanket, supposedly reading, actually just existing together. "Can't afford grad school." He didn't say it with bitterness. Just a fact. "That's insane. Your thesis was incredible." "You read my thesis?" "I read everything you've published." She caught his expression. "What?" "I'm thorough." "You're intense." Says the man who memorized my favorite painting after I mentioned it once. He had. Artemisia Gentileschi's Judith slaying Holofernes. A woman taking power into her own hands, literally. It reminded me of you, he admitted. Fighting back against everything trying to define you. Naomi's breath caught. Jameson. Yeah. I'm falling for you. Like, really falling. Is that stupid? His heart was hammered. If it is, we're both stupid. She kissed him then, soft and certain, tasting like the coffee they'd abandoned an hour ago. When they broke apart, Jameson felt like he'd stepped off a cliff and found wings. My mother's going to lose her mind, Naomi whispered. Your mother already hates me. True. She grinned. Might as well give her a real reason. They tried to be careful. Met in Brooklyn, not Manhattan. Avoided anywhere the Ashford social circle might frequent. But New York was small when you had money, and Carolina Ashford had eyes everywhere. The call came on a Wednesday evening. Jameson was at the community center, teaching chess to a group of kids, when his phone vibrated. Naomi, she knows. We need to talk. His stomach dropped. Jameson, when? Naomi, now. Can you meet me at the loft? The loft was Naomi's rebellion, a rent-controlled space in Williamsburg she'd leased with her own money, refusing her father's offer of a penthouse. It was small, full of art books and thrift store furniture, and the first place Jameson had felt truly comfortable in her world. He got there in 30 minutes. Naomi opened the door, her face pale. She hired an investigator, Naomi said without preamble. She has photos. Of us at the coffee shop, the park, everywhere. Shit. She wants to meet with you. Tomorrow. Alone. Jameson's jaw tightened. What did you tell her? That she could go to hell. Naomi's voice shook with anger. But she threatened to cut me off completely. No trust fund, no access to Dad, nothing. Then we'll figure it out. There's more. Naomi looked at him, eyes glistening. She's threatening to destroy you, Jameson. She knows about your student loans, your mother's medical bills. She said she has connections who could make your life very difficult. Of course she did. People like Carolina Ashford didn't fight fair. They fought with lawyers and money and the casual cruelty of people who'd never faced real consequences. So we stop, Jameson said quietly. We walk away before she. No. Naomi grabbed his hands. No. I'm not letting her win. I'm not letting her decide who I love. Love. She'd said love. Naomi. I love you, Jameson Cole. I love how you see the world, how you make me think, how you keep fighting even when everything's stacked against you. I love that you're real in a world full of people performing their lives. Tears spilled down her cheeks. And I'm not giving that up because my mother is a monster. Jameson pulled her close, his own heart breaking and mending simultaneously. I love you too. But I won't let her destroy you to hurt me. Then we fight together. Naomi pulled back, wiping her eyes. I will meet with her tomorrow. I tell her I'm choosing you. Whatever happens after that, we face it together. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. What would you do if your family stood between you and the person you love? Drop your thoughts below. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, they held each other, two people choosing love in a world determined to keep them apart. The war with Carolina Ashford had officially begun. Chapter 6, The Ultimatum. Carolina Ashford's office occupied the top floor of the Ashford Foundation building, all glass and steel and carefully curated power. Naomi walked in at precisely 2 p.m., her spine straight, her resolve steel reinforced. Her mother sat behind a desk that cost more than most people's cars, perfectly composed in cream Chanel. Sit. Naomi remained standing. I'll stand, thanks. Carolina's eyes narrowed. Don't be childish. I'm not. I'm being clear. Whatever you're about to say, the answer is no. You don't even know what I'm offering. I know you, Mother. So yes. No. Carolina stood, moving to the window overlooking Manhattan. Her kingdom. I've set up a meeting with the Morrison family. Jeffrey is willing to overlook this indiscretion. The engagement can be announced next month. I'm not marrying Jeffrey. You're marrying someone suitable. If not Jeffrey, then Harrison Pemberton. Or that Rhodes boy, what's his name? The one with the hedge fund. I'm not marrying any of them. Carolina turned, her voice ice. Then you're cut off. Completely. No trust fund, no allowance, no access to family accounts. Your father has already signed the papers. Naomi's heart twisted. Her father, spineless as always. Fine. Fine. Carolina's composure cracked slightly. You think you can survive on a waitress's salary? Living in that sad little loft? I'm an art restoration intern at the Met. And yes, I'll manage. With him. Carolina spat the word like poison. That waiter. That. Say it. Naomi's voice was deadly quiet. Go ahead. Say what you really think. Show me exactly who you are. Carolina's mouth tightened. He's using you. For your money, your connections, your name. He doesn't want any of those things. That's the point you'll never understand. I understand perfectly. Carolina moved closer. I understand you're throwing away your entire future for some fantasy. Romance doesn't pay bills, Naomi. Love doesn't maintain your lifestyle. Maybe I don't want that lifestyle. You will. In 6 months, when you're struggling with rent, when your little artist friends move on to real careers, when he resents you for dragging him into your world, you'll come crawling back. I won't. Carolina's smile was cruel. Then let me make this crystal clear. If you continue this relationship, you're not just cut off financially. You're cut off from this family. No Christmas dinners, no galas, no contact with your father. You'll be dead to me. The word should have hurt more. But Naomi had been preparing for this her entire life without knowing it. I can live with that, she said softly. Can you? For the first time, Carolina looked uncertain. You're my daughter. Then act like I matter more than your reputation. You do matter. That's why I'm trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. The biggest mistake of my life would be becoming you. Naomi grabbed her bag. I'm done here. Naomi. I love him, Mother. I love Jameson Cole. He's kind and brilliant and he sees me, actually sees me, not just the Ashford name or the trust fund or whatever version you've been trying to shape me into. Her voice broke. And if you can't understand that, if you can't be happy that I'm happy, then maybe we both need this distance. She walked to the door. He'll leave you. Carolina's voice was sharp with desperation masked as certainty. Men like him always do. And when he does, don't come crying to me. Naomi turned. Men like him? You mean men with integrity? Men who work 3 jobs and still volunteer with kids? Men who treat people with dignity regardless of their bank accounts? She smiled sadly. You're right. Men like Jameson don't exist in your world. That's exactly why I'm choosing him. She left Carolina standing alone in her glass tower, surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that mattered. Outside, Jameson waited on the sidewalk, pacing. When he saw her face, he knew. She did it, Naomi said. I'm officially disinherited. Naomi. I'm free. She laughed, tears streaming. I'm actually free. He caught her as she stumbled, held her as she cried for the family she'd just lost and the life she'd just chosen. Above them, in her office, Carolina Ashford watched through the window, already plotting her next move. This wasn't over. 4 months later, reality had teeth. Naomi's loft was cramped with both of them living there. Her Met internship paid barely enough to cover groceries. Jameson worked 4 jobs now, his philosophy degree still a beautiful piece of paper that opened no doors. They were happy. Exhausted, broke, but happy. Until Carolina decided happiness wasn't a sufficient punishment. Mr. Cole. The woman's voice on the phone was professionally cold. This is Patricia Hendricks from Metro Catering Services. I'm calling to inform you that your employment has been terminated, effective immediately. Jameson's stomach dropped. What? Why? We've received complaints about your conduct at several events. We have a zero-tolerance policy. What complaints? I've never. The decision is final. Your last paycheck will be mailed. Click. 3 hours later, his uncle's repair shop called. A sudden restructuring meant they couldn't keep him on. By evening, all 4 jobs had evaporated like smoke. Jameson sat on the loft's worn couch, staring at his phone. Naomi came home to find him there, still in shock. What happened? He told her. I watched her face go from confusion to horror to cold rage. She did this, Naomi whispered. My mother did this. You don't know that. Yes, I do. This is exactly what she threatened. Naomi grabbed her keys. I'm going over there. Naomi, don't. She can't destroy your life because she's angry at me. Going there proves she's winning. Jameson stood, his own frustration boiling over. She wants you desperate enough to come crawling back. That's the whole point. So what do we do? Just let her ruin you. We survive. I'll find other work. Where? She has connections everywhere, Jameson. You think this is a coincidence? Naomi's voice cracked. I did this to you. I brought you into my world and now she's. Stop. He grabbed her shoulders gently. I chose this. I chose you. Your mother doesn't get to decide what we're worth. But how do we fight someone with infinite resources? Jameson didn't have an answer. How did you fight someone who could make phone calls and erase your livelihood? Someone who weaponized money like other people weaponized words. 2 weeks later. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday. Naomi's landlord was apologetic but firm. The building had been sold. New owners wanted the units vacant in 30 days. Let me guess, Naomi said bitterly. The new owner is an Ashford subsidiary. The landlord's silence was confirmation enough. That night, they sat on the loft floor, surrounded by boxes they couldn't afford to move. Maybe. Naomi started, then stopped. Maybe what? Maybe I should call her. Apologize. Say I'll meet Jeffrey, just to get her to stop. You don't mean that. I mean I'm watching her destroy you and I can't. Naomi's voice broke. I can't be the reason you lose everything. You're not. She is. Jameson took her hands. And if we give in now, we're telling her this works. That she can torture anyone we care about until we comply. So we lose the loft. You have no job. I'm barely making rent anywhere else. How is this sustainable? I don't know, Jameson admitted. The exhaustion in his voice was crushing. But I know I don't want a life where Carolina Ashford decides who I love. Naomi leaned against him, tears soaking his shirt. They sat there in their half-packed loft, 2 people choosing each other in the wreckage of everything else. The next morning. Jameson's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cole. This is Robert Chen from the Brooklyn Community Foundation. Your name was submitted for our Urban Philosophy Fellowship. It's a 2-year teaching position with benefits and housing. Are you interested? Jameson's hand trembled. Who submitted my name? It was anonymous. But your credentials are impressive. We'd like to interview you tomorrow. After he hung up, Naomi looked at him questioningly. Someone's helping us, he said slowly. Someone with resources. They didn't know it yet, but Richard Ashford had finally found his spine. And he'd decided his daughter's happiness mattered more than his wife's approval. The war wasn't over. But they'd just gained an unexpected ally. The fellowship interview went better than Jameson dared hope. Within a week, he had the position, teaching philosophy to underserved high school students, with a modest apartment included in Brooklyn Heights. It wasn't luxury. But it was dignified work. A future. Naomi's promotion to junior art restorer came days later, another anonymous recommendation that bore the fingerprints of someone with influence. Your dad, Jameson said one evening as they unpacked boxes in their new place. It has to be. Maybe. Naomi set down a stack of books. He called yesterday. First time in 4 months. What did he say? That he was sorry. That he should have stood up to her years ago. She smiled sadly. He wants to meet you. Officially. The meeting happened at a quiet restaurant in Greenwich Village. Richard Ashford looked smaller than Jameson remembered from the gala, less the billionaire, more the man who'd lost years to cowardice and was desperately trying to buy them back. Mr. Cole. Richard extended his hand. Thank you for coming. Sir. Jameson shook it, wary. They sat. Richard ordered scotch, then seemed to reconsider and asked for water instead. I owe you both an apology, Richard began. I've spent 25 years letting Carolina make every decision, control every aspect of our lives. I told myself it was easier. That she knew best. He looked at Naomi. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Dad. Let me finish. Richard's voice was firm, maybe the first time Jameson had heard him sound certain about anything. Carolina is trying to destroy you both. The jobs, the apartment, that was her. But she doesn't know I've been countering her moves. The fellowship, Jameson said. And the promotion. And I've set up a trust in Naomi's name that Carolina can't touch. It's not much, enough to be comfortable, not enough to be careless. You'll both still need to work. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Why now? Because I looked at you two and saw something I haven't felt in decades. Richard's voice cracked. Love. Real love. The kind that makes you brave instead of comfortable. He turned to Jameson. You made my daughter brave enough to stand up to her mother. That takes remarkable character. She was already brave, Jameson said quietly. She just needed permission to show it. Richard smiled, genuine warmth breaking through years of practiced neutrality. Take care of her. I plan to. And Naomi? Richard looked at his daughter. Don't make my mistakes. Don't let anyone, not even someone you love, make you smaller than you are. That night, Carolina appeared at their apartment door. Naomi opened it to find her mother standing there, immaculate as always, but something was different. Her armor had cracks. May I come in? Naomi stepped aside wordlessly. Carolina entered, her eyes taking in the modest space, the mismatched furniture, the life her daughter had built without her. Jameson stood by the kitchen counter, arms crossed. I came to. Carolina stopped. Started again. Your father left me. The words hung in the air. Not literally, Carolina continued, her voice strange without its usual venom. He's still in the house. But he's different. He looks at me like he doesn't recognize me anymore. Her eyes met Naomi's. Like you looked at me in my office. Mother. I spent 4 months trying to destroy your life. Trying to prove I was right, that this would fail, that you'd come back to me. Carolina's composure cracked. But you didn't. You survived. You thrived. And I'm standing in the ruins of my marriage realizing I was wrong about everything. Naomi's breath caught. Are you apologizing? I'm trying to. Carolina looked at Jameson. You're not what I thought. What I wanted to think. You make her happy. Genuinely happy. Not performed for photographs happy. Mrs. Ashford. I don't expect forgiveness. From either of you. Carolina moved toward the door. But I wanted you to know that I'm done fighting. You've won. Or maybe, she looked at Naomi, maybe we've all lost, and you're the only ones who figured out how to win differently. She left, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and something that might have been regret. Naomi turned to Jameson, tears streaming. Did that just happen? I think your mother just became human. What do we do now? Jameson pulled her close. We live. We love each other. We build something real. Outside, the city hummed with possibility. Inside, two people who'd fought for each other finally had permission to simply be. 1 year later. The community center was packed. Jameson's students had organized an exhibition, Philosophy in Practice, showcasing how existential thought applied to real life. Photos, essays, art pieces that made abstract concepts tangible. Naomi stood near the entrance, greeting guests. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair loose, her smile genuine. The Met had offered her a permanent position. She'd accepted. This is impressive, a familiar voice said. Carolina Ashford stood at the door, clutching an expensive handbag like a shield. Richard stood beside her, not behind her. Beside her. You came, Naomi breathed. You invited me. Carolina's voice was careful, stripped of its usual armor. I wasn't sure you meant it. I wasn't sure either, Naomi admitted. But, you're my mother. I wanted you here. The past year had been complicated. Carolina had started therapy, actual therapy, not the society-approved kind where you discussed feelings over wine. She'd reached out monthly, small gestures that felt clumsy but genuine. Naomi had responded cautiously, letting trust rebuild at its own pace. Where is he? Carolina asked. Jameson. In the back, panicking. 30 teenagers just told him his opening remarks are too formal. Carolina's lips twitched. Almost a smile. May I see what they've created? Naomi led her through the exhibition. Photos of Jameson teaching, animated and alive in ways the gala waiter never could have been. Student essays about finding meaning in struggle, authenticity in a performative world. One display stopped Carolina cold. A photo essay titled Dignity. Images of working people, waiters, janitors, delivery drivers, interspersed with quotes from Kierkegaard about the inherent worth of every human soul. The final image was Jameson at the gala, tray in hand, spine straight despite Carolina's finger pointing at him. Below it, a caption, "This man taught us that dignity isn't given by others. It's claimed by ourselves." Carolina's hand went to her mouth. That's Marcus, a teenage girl said, appearing beside them. Mr. Cole, I mean. Before he was our teacher. Someone tried to make him feel small. He didn't let them. The girl moved on. Carolina stood frozen. I did that, she whispered. Yes, Naomi said quietly. You did. And he still, Carolina gestured at the exhibition. He built all this. Helped all these kids. Even after I tried to destroy him. That's who he is, Mother. That's what I tried to tell you. The ceremony began. Jameson stood at the front, his students arranged around him. He spoke about philosophy not as abstract theory but as lived experience. About choosing authenticity in a world that rewarded performance. About love as an act of courage. His eyes found Naomi's in the crowd. She smiled. Carolina watched her daughter watch him, saw the way Naomi glowed, the way this man made her daughter more herself, not less. This was what she'd almost destroyed. After, as guests mingled over donated pizza and juice boxes. Mr. Cole. Jameson turned. Carolina stood there, Richard a step behind, present but not interfering. Mrs. Ashford. I wanted to apologize. Properly. Carolina's voice was steady but soft. What I did to you, at the gala, after, it was cruel. Wrong. Rooted in prejudice and fear. She met his eyes. I'm sorry. Jameson studied her. A year ago, he might have held on to anger. But these students had taught him something about forgiveness, not as absolution, but as release. I appreciate that, he said carefully. I also wanted to say, Carolina glanced at Naomi, who was showing Richard a student's work. Thank you. For loving my daughter enough to fight for her. For being the kind of man who proves me wrong about everything. I didn't do it to prove anything. I know. That's exactly the point. Carolina extended her hand. Would you both come to dinner? Next week? Just the four of us. No agendas. Jameson shook her hand. We'll think about it. That's more than I deserve. She moved away. Richard paused, clasped Jameson's shoulder briefly, a gesture of respect between men, and followed his wife. Naomi appeared at Jameson's side. So, dinner next week. Apparently. Do you think she's really changed? I think she's trying. That's enough for now. Naomi leaned into him. Around them, students laughed and argued about Nietzsche. The community center hummed with life and possibility. You know what's funny? Naomi said. What? She tried to keep us apart by pointing out our differences. Instead, she just proved that love doesn't care about any of that. Jameson kissed her forehead. Best revenge is living well. Speaking of which, Naomi pulled back, her eyes bright. How do you feel about living even better? I found this perfect apartment in Park Slope. 2 bedrooms. One could be your study. Naomi Ashford, are you asking me to move in with you? Again. I'm asking you to build a life with me. Again and again and always. What does love mean to you when everything is stacked against it? Drop your thoughts below, we'd love to hear your story. Outside, the sun set over Brooklyn. Inside, 2 people who'd fought the world for each other finally had permission to simply live. The waiter who wore white had become the man who wore dignity like a crown. And the billionaire's daughter had become exactly who she was meant to be. Love, it turned out, was the ultimate rebellion. And the best possible revenge. The end.